Hey everybody, welcome to another tutorial from B-Dub Records. I'm Bill Witt. Today we're talking about online mastering services and how to prepare your work to be mastered online. Now there are several ways you can do that. One is doing all the mixing yourself, creating a stereo wave file that you just send in. Another way is to break out the different parts, so you have stems. One stem would be your drums and another would be your guitar and another stem would have all your vocals together. Then the third way is just to turn over the entire project to someone and say, you mix it and you master it, or you mix it and send it to someone else to master it. So there's three ways to go about it, and let's take a look at each one of those, beginning with the most simple on my end of things, and that's just receiving a single stereo wave file. I always ask for wave files instead of MP3 files because you don't want a bunch of lossy compression artifacts mucking up your master. So send the highest quality wave file you've got, 24-bit preferably, 32-bit's okay as well. 16-bit if you can't do any better. But here's an example in this project called Dangerous by Record Heights. You can see they've sent me a single stereo wave file, and if we expand it you can see there's nothing peaking, there's nothing that's banging its head against the ceiling, so it's getting clipped and making some noise. And let's have a listen.
It's another night out, hanging with my friends, walking and see you standing there.
You can see in the space above it, I've dedicated a track to what their reference track was. They said we want this mix to sound like Promiscuous. So as I mastered it, I went back and forth listening to the EQ and the feel of Promiscuous compared to their song and tried to get the two to sound similar. After mastering, I'll just unbypass all these effects.
It's another night out, hanging with my friends, walking and see you standing there. Falling into deep, I'm shocked and I can't breathe. Now I'm frozen in your stare. It feels like you look at my way. I wanna get close to you. I got nothing to say. Why can't I just man up? I know myself, I just obsessed, addicted mix. This love is dangerous.
So a really cool song, and you can check out the link somewhere right in here that I'll put into their YouTube page. Really cool song, and it's on iTunes. You can buy it as well. Now let's look at the next level of complexity, and that is multi-stem mastering. Again, where you separate out the different parts. So if I need to re-EQ something, say your vocals are a little dull, I can brighten your vocals without also having to brighten everything else and make the hi-hat just overpowering. So by separating out the vocals from the drums and the guitars, then I can work with things individually. I do that for the same price, and that's currently $40 per song to master, and you can send up to 4 stems to me. Let's look at someone who did that. So we can see they've sent 4 stems. Here's the bass pad, the beats, the chorus synth, and the lead synth. Now each of these is pre-mixed, they're pre-EQ'd. It sounds basically like he wants it to sound. In other words, I don't have to go in through here and make this really loud and make this really soft and apply a bunch of EQ to each of these different parts. It's roughly the way he wants it to sound by just dropping the stems into 4 audio tracks. Let's have a listen. And so what this gave me the freedom to do was to make that lead synth bite a little bit more, and so I applied an EQ plugin that you can see here that just raised some 4 kilohertz quite substantially, and then I also attenuated beneath 100 kilohertz because it was kind of cloudying up the mix, if you will. So here's what it sounds like with that mix adjustment. Definitely filling its role in the song a little better. And now with the mastering plugins applied, so a very cool song. I really like the sound of that. And by having the stems, I was able to just make that lead synth punch out a little bit more where it needed to, right in the 4 kilohertz range, and cut out some of the muddiness in its low end. I was also able to remix just a little bit of things I wanted just a tad louder and a tad quieter. Sometimes when you master things, it alters the tonal balance, so you need to remix just a little bit. That's multi-stem mastering. As I said, I don't charge any more for multi-stem mastering than I do for regular mastering. So it's $40 per song, and you get up to 4 stems included. If you want additional stems, just let me know and we can work out a price for that. Now the last thing to look at is mixing and mastering. So let's take a look at someone who sent a track that needed both mixing and mastering. So in this project we've got the same number of tracks, or actually less, but it's called mixing here because they haven't attempted to make the mix themselves. It needed a lot of EQ work, for instance here.
Trying to catch up to Wilbur still never claimed to be a player, but hey, that's how I felt. Thought you was just gonna be another notch under my belt. Chicks I used to mess with told me that you wasn't my type. And thinking back honestly, that's probably what I like.
Make it a lot brighter. And add some of the missing lows. And then also add a linear multi-band compressor, which is working to de-ess these frequencies. And also just work the other frequencies as well. And we'll bring a little bit of brightness to that track as well, and then apply the mastering plugin. Trying to catch up to Wilbur still never claimed to be a player, but hey, that's how I felt. Thought you was just gonna be another notch under my belt. Chicks I used to mess with told me that you wasn't my type. And thinking back, alright, so we've seen some basic types of mastering projects: the stereo wave file, the stems, the full mixing. Let's talk about how to get your project ready to go. Let's say you want to do stems. Here's a project I recently recorded with a lot of audio tracks. This would cost a small fortune to send off to mix because there's so many tracks. But luckily I've done most of the mixing myself. As you can see, we've got tons of plugins here: reverbs, EQs, delays, dynamics, compression. So I think it's pretty well mixed. I just want to send it off to be mastered in stems. How do I do that? Well, let's pick some stems. Let's say there's the drums. Let's make that one stem. We could just solo all the drums, along with, there's some clapping down here, so let's put the claps in there, and then we'll bounce to disc. So everything you've soloed becomes your drum stem. That's one way of doing it. We'd repeat the process for the other stems. Another way is to use buses. Now if you've looked at the project closely, you'll notice that I have things assigned to buses. I've went into our I/O setup and named the buses drums, guitars, keys, and vocals, and I've assigned each of these inputs, each of these audio tracks, to a bus. So here's something assigned to your drum bus, for instance. As you go down, here's your vocals. So I've assigned them to, you guessed it, the vocal bus. And I've also assigned anything that goes with the vocals, such as the vocal delay, to the vocal bus. At the bottom of the project, I've created 4 stereo audio tracks, and I've named them drum, guitar, keys, and vocal stems. Instead of having an input from the interface, like a mic plugged in, their input is the bus. So basically now, if I hit record, and I got to arm these for recording, I'm going to be separating out all these different stems. And there you can see it go into action, recording each of those stems. Now if I were to send this off for multi-stem mastering, all I'd have to do is locate each of these new files on the hard drive, and it should be right there in the project folder. And because I named the tracks drum stem, guitar stem, key stem, those audio files are probably getting named already, very conveniently, drumstem.wave. So that's a very easy way of teasing out the stems of your project and sending them off to be mastered. Again, stems are when you've already done the hard work of mixing yourself, so the levels are all just ready to go. The EQ is pretty good as far as your ear can hear, and you're ready to send it off in little subdivisions to be mastered. I like to think of stems sometimes like lanes on a highway. And so your project has lots of tracks, but you can assign them all to these different lanes. So all your singers you put on the vocal lane or the vocal bus going down the vocal lane, and all your drum mics and your percussion effects you send down the drum lane or the bus, as Pro Tools calls it. And when you've got everything assigned to the appropriate lane, then you just have to record that lane by making a new stereo audio track and assigning its input to be that bus. Once you've recorded it, it's easy to find that file and send it off. So that's a look at how you might set up your recording to be ready to be mastered in stems. If you have any other questions, just let me know. And of course, I look forward to hearing what you're working on. We've had the chance to work with a lot of really talented people in the past, as you've heard, and there'll be more videos that I put out showing some more of the talented people I've worked with. But if you want to use us for your mastering, that'd be great. Our prices, as I said before, are just $40 per song, which is pretty low. And we have up to a 33% discount available if you do a full album at one time with us. As always, because you're our YouTube subscribers, because we love you all so much, we'll do the first song for free. That's just so you can see if our process works well with your music, if it sounds good on your style of music. And as far as mixing goes, the price there is $60 for mixing for up to 6 tracks. If you want additional tracks mixed, that'll be $10 per track extra. So a song with 12 audio tracks will be $120 to mix. If you want mastering on top of that, that'll be another $40 for a total of $160. So you get the idea. If you have any questions, just email us or comment. The email address to send your stuff to is mastering@bdubrecords.net. So thanks again for watching, and we'll hope to hear your stuff soon.